welcome, and thank you so much. You're tuning in today to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM WRUU. We are listening to Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Okay, Sebastian, do you mind playing a little bit for us? And this is Sebastian Messer. This is the Adam Messer Show, everybody. Thanks, Bass. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. And my special guests today are Kristi Chandler and Kevin Grogan, and they are the creators. Kristi is the author and creator of Rescue Radar, and Kevin is the illustrator for this. And we were just right before the break, this first hour, we were talking about the stuff in town and the stories and all that with Rescue Radar. And then we were just talking about, not necessarily always having the right resources, and, you can figure stuff out and you can move on, just as long as you got that passion and you got the action, you want to do, what you want to do with it. And people are going to open up and try to help you and do a lot of cool things. So Kristi and Kevin, welcome back. Thank you for being here with us again today.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
So, let's dig in a little bit more, because one of the things with this show is we talk with the creators about their process, and so that somebody sitting at home who might be just like you, before you started getting into publishing this book, let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of this. So, Kristi, you had the idea for the story. You met James Dean from Pete the Cat. And he inspired you to just go for it. Kevin, you had never done illustration. Like you said, you kind of had always had like a serious career with your military and law enforcement background. And, Kristi, you were like, I've got to do this. And Kevin's like, we'll figure it out. We'll make a way. I know you said it's print something. I can't remember the name of the printing company.
Pint-sized publications.
Pint-sized publications. So you guys discovered them. You got some print copies run of the books, and the idea is to have 6 of these book board Rescue Radar books. So it's going to be Rescue Radar with different stories, and so that's catching everybody up to this point of what we talked about last hour. So, when you were like, okay, I'm gonna figure out, I've got the story, and then I've got the character, right? So what was the process like when you're like, okay, we've got this first digital story done, you've got it illustrated and whatever, then the next thing, did you think about where you could get it published? Because you kind of started talking about it earlier in the hour, and then we kind of changed subjects a little bit. But how did that go when you found the publishing company? How did that work out? And how did you come to that realization that you wanted to use them for Rescue Radar?
Here's the thing, like we talked about, so I had the experience with a nonfiction book, mm-hmm. and I, Kindle Direct Publishing, and I got on Amazon, and we did that, and I learned all about print on demand, and I tried the most economical way of doing it. So that was 3 years ago. And in that 3 years, I've talked to a lot of people, traditional publishers. I had a couple offers, but I mean, none of this stuff has really been a money-making endeavor.
Right.
It's all been about, getting the story out and that. But the brass tacks of it was when the concept came out. It wasn't so much the stories that drove it. It was the character. Mm-hmm. We came up, I drew his face, and Kristi said, well, let's get him to do this, and let's get him to do that. and then we set it in the beautiful city of Savannah, and it went from there. And I think the smartest marketing, and I think the smartest thing is if you're writing a novel or a nonfiction book, you know, it's one book, and you go and you hit or miss on that book. So Kristi's idea was to do, she didn't want to release just one story. She wanted to release 3. So
like a series. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So do a series, because if you don't like the, Case of the Playground Bully, but you love the Case of the Wandering Bird, you know, there's still some success there, and you can go. But it's Rescue Radar across the board. So, you know, we're pretty confident that people are going to like Radar himself, because again, he's a was a charismatic little dude in real life, and he's got a, real kind of grabby face now. But the COVID delay and all that kind of stuff has really kind of been a blessing in working with the people again at Pint Size Productions to do the printing. We found an affordable way to, now we're up to 6 titles. So, you know, the chances of one of the 6 doing well is great. Hopefully they'll all do really well. But, you know, we just kind of increased from a business standpoint. We lessened the risk. You know, we're still doing, we're still getting the same number of units, but we have 6 different angles, or 6 different titles to give it a chance to succeed.
And, Adam, we sat down and we looked at how Kevin published his book, and we said, hey, can we go this way? No, we can't. Okay, how do you do board books? And he mentioned some publishers earlier, Book Baby, and you mentioned I forgot who it is, but it's Lulu's or whoever. And there's some things that you can do out there where you say, oh, I want a custom board book for my child. And you can do that, right? That's a digital printed board book, one book that you do for your baby. It is extremely expensive. They're very expensive. They're anywhere from $30 to $60 per book, and it's a book. It's not
a great gift.
It is. It's a really good gift, but it's not really custom. It's kind of like a lullaby story that you upload your pictures and you tell it which name you want to fill in the blank to.
Yeah.
It's customizable, right? But that is not a story that you, Adam, wrote, right? It says, here, baby Sebastian, here's your, and it's a very adorable thing to get. But that's not what we're talking about.
It's formatted.
It's right. It's a fill in the blank kind of thing. When you're talking about mass production of 300 to 1,000 book units with one story, that is a whole nother animal. So we started looking at that, and just like he said, everything now is printed in Asia, and we start going. Before COVID even came around, we didn't want that if it was at all possible. And then that was really an issue. And then everything was shut down, So we increased we found a publisher in the United States, which made us much happier. I'm sorry, a printer in the United States, plus it made it more economical. And then we have this whole business standpoint, just like he was mentioning, is better for us and puts more of Radar's face out there, which makes us and hopefully everyone else happier.
I've got their website pulled up too, and the nice thing from what they're showing here is, it is their factories here in the U.S. And they actually have a walkthrough where you can sell your book on Amazon as well, so people can order the book through Amazon, which Amazon's like the biggest book seller right now. There's a ton of booksellers out there, but I think it's really cool because if you think about like scaling up or down, that's a challenge. You don't want to scale too fast, but you want to be able to scale. So looking at this, looking at this Pint Size Productions, it looks like you guys I think you made a good choice with, the way that you're going to publish your book and to be able to have, a good quality book. I think it's great. I mean, honestly, I like I said, I had written a children's story, and a friend of mine and we were talking, a couple months back, we were talking about the kids' story stuff, Yeah, because I went to before. Actually, it was like a couple weeks before the school systems had shut down this year, and I went to Guyton Elementary. A friend of mine, Miss Jordan, is a teacher out there, and she invited me to come out and talk with the kids. And I was like, I really hadn't talked to. I mean, I hadn't shown or shared really anything with the Build a Long Neck Dragon, but I sent it over to her, and I think we had like 25 or 26 kids in the room. I did a little reading with the kids. They were coloring. They showed me some of their coloring stuff. It was such a neat interactive experience, and a friend of mine and I were talking about that. And because Kevin, I know you talk about publishing, so Kristi, I write. I've written the Savannah vampire novel series, so it's like a little horror fantasy type thing, more kind of like a Dracula versus the twinkly vampire type stuff. And I also write horror stuff, but I wanted to separate that from my kids' stuff. So I actually, when I put the book out on Amazon, and like I said, it's just kind of like a first edition type thing. I made a whole separate Amazon page because I wanted to separate the kids' stuff, the children's work, from like my stuff that's like for older people, teenagers and on up. And a friend of mine and I were talking about publishing kids stories, and I kind of like the idea of doing the storybook coloring thing. But I think this is so cool that you guys have this book board thing set up, and that you got like a series. And it's character driven. It's kind of like, any other character out there, like Sherlock Holmes or any other character like, Spider-Man or Wonder Woman or whatever. People, when they want to know more about that character and they like that character and they identify with that character, like Pete the Cat, I mean, there's a ton of Pete the Cat stories out there now. There's videos and all kinds of stuff.
There's like 96 different formats and titles, and it comes in all different things. But I got to tell you, two things. One of the big things, and got to give Miss Joni credit for this, is we actually wanted to release this in March. We wanted to introduce Radar to people in March, and we knew we wouldn't have the books by then. But we had some other like merchandise stuff.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, what are we going to do? How can we introduce his characters? How can we get people to go to the website to get them interested, to try and build, to get a buzz going about Rescue Radar? And she's like, well, what you need is just little things, So we did stickers. We did temporary tattoos.
Oh, I love the idea of stickers and
we
stuff.
did coloring books.
Yep.
So
I love the idea.
Technically, the first Rescue Radar book is the Case of the Colorful Characters, which is nothing but the characters' faces in a coloring book.
I think that's great. I mean, like the kids love that kind of stuff, and the parents and the grandparents. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from folks is that they read this story to their kids or their grandkids or whatever. And I just love that feeling. I mean, I think it's so cool that you guys did a coloring book, and I love the idea with storytelling, because like as a kid, okay, so R.L. Stine, one of the most popular children's book authors, writes the little horror stuff. I remember as a kid growing up watching Scooby-Doo and like little mystery stuff or whatever. And I love the idea with Rescue Radar, how he's kind of like a little detective, he's like going out there and, like little cases of, whatever. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's got the, and that comes from our background.
Right.
And Kristi's in 911 communications. But the thing is, we're very pro-police. We're very, in the world today, I think it's so important to give a positive image of, hey, there's somebody coming to help you when there's a problem.
I agree. I need to do a station ID real quick. Everybody, you're listening to WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And I completely agree. I think it's important that we support good police officers and the good people in law enforcement. and that, that we do enforce the law for everyone. So that's all I want to say about that. But I think it's great that you're giving a positive message for folks, and showing like, hey, this is the good side of like what's going on.
Yeah. Oh no. And just to give the listeners an idea, so that the concept behind Radar is Radar's, he's tromping through Savannah, wherever, be it Forsyth Park, be it Daphne Park, be it City Market, wherever he is. And then the side, then the other characters will be out, and whatever situation happens, he'll be alerted somehow through a noise, a cry, a crash, whatever the noise may be, and that perks his ears up. And Radar goes into rescue mode, and his eyes flash like police siren lights.
Oh wow!
So they go blue and red. So his black pupils turn blue and red.
And, yeah, that's awesome.
They flash, and he's in rescue mode. And because he's a Boston Terrier, he doesn't bark; he barks at people.
Oh,
so he
okay.
Goes into rescue mode and goes and deals with the situation. So it's a lot of fun, and you'll see him zoom across.
He zooms
Forsyth
super
Park,
fast across the city wherever their help is needed.
Zooms down to River Street, wherever the problem is, and it's so much fun. But I'll tell you, you made a comment, and you're talking about quality. I got to tell you, and I'm not getting any money for this. It's not an advertisement or anything like that. It's just...
Yeah, we can't advertise on the community radio station anyway, so...
Absolutely. But the guys who printed this book for us, okay? And Adam, you know this as well as I do. One of the coolest days of my life was when the UPS man showed up with a box of books.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
And I cut the tape, and I opened it up, and there was the book.
That is
my title, my name, my cover, my all that.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
So, and Kristi is the love of my life. So when we got...
Oh, that's something we didn't mention. Y'all are married.
I'm not married yet.
Not married yet? Engaged?
Yeah, you know what? Let's not put it on. Let's not record.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry.
To say that we're very much in love. How's that?
You guys are lovebirds.
Yeah. So one of the coolest things is, like I said, that really was one of the coolest experiences. Like I said, you can relate. When you get that first box or whatever. So,
Kristi, how did it feel for you?
Well, he's gonna tell you that.
Okay, yeah.
It was great because we ordered the digital copy of it because I wanted her to be first of all, we wanted to see it. I wanted to see the quality. Is this a company that's gonna
are the pages gonna fall apart? Is the binding good? Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like you want to make sure that it's representing you, but it's also good quality, that it's not gonna fall apart as soon as somebody reads it. Yeah.
Right before we order 2,000 books.
Right.
Hopefully it will pass the toddler test. So anyway,
the drool test.
Exactly. So we sent off for it. It came in, and I work for myself, so during the day I'm around, but I got a text alert saying, that FedEx had delivered a package, and we knew, roughly what day it was. I had just picked off the package from the FedEx driver when Kristi called me. She said, it's here.
Oh, wow.
So I grabbed it and drove, the half hour it took to get to her office to deliver. And watching her open it and see her first book in her hands, I tell you, that made the experience of opening my own book with my name on it, that was the second coolest thing I've ever seen, because getting to see Kristi hold hers you don't get too many times like that in your life. It's really pretty cool.
And it was amazing.
I completely agree. I mean, that's one of the things. I saw something where people talking about that same feeling, that same experience. When we're young, and Kristi, you were talking about like being, a kid. You learn so much as a young age and whatever. And as we get older, it seems like time just kind of passes by sometimes, because we have fewer and fewer and fewer new experiences, and that I can totally understand that feeling. When I got my first book in my hand with my name on it, and I'm like, wow, this is a thing.
Right.
And every time I get a new copy of one of my books, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just, I love it. I just love the feeling.
Indescribable.
Yeah.
It's indescribable.
And especially when you're doing something different. I mean, like, book boards have been around, or our board books have been around for a long time. That's, that's nothing new. But when you're doing something different, like you're an indie publisher, an indie author, indie illustrator, and y'all are publishing this book, who else is doing that around here?
Well, yeah.
Probably nobody.
For him to just, I don't know. The character based on this dog that really meant so much to me. And
my
this
best
idea,
boy dog friend, I might add.
Right.
Yeah.
This idea that's percolating for many years and just bringing to fruition something that was very much, I didn't really think it was actually ever going to become something. And for me, even if it was just that one demo book, which is not going to be the case, but that was amazing. And then, and now when I saw that one book, knowing that there's 2,000 more to come, I can't even begin to describe,
But what's even cooler than that, what's been so much fun, is the conversation at the Bluffton Book Festival to the next Sunday, to where we're sitting here. And I mean, we're grown folks, and I she's younger than I am, not really, but I consider myself middle aged, and like you said, there's not too many new, but we giggled like kids.
We did.
Yeah, I'm sitting here smiling. I think it's a great. Honestly, I've learned something new today, and I thought when Kevin, when you sent me the pictures of the T-shirts, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And, you sent me the thing about the rescue radar, and I was like, this is different. This is neat. I like that. Well, honestly, I like pixel art, and I like, stuff that's, I don't know how to describe it other than, it's very simple. It's very just straightforward, but it has a lot of character. Like, you see the character and you're like, wow, this is, it's very representative of, of Rescue Radar.
No, he grabs you, and you keep mentioning it, but I got to tell you, the thing that we've had a blast,
the T-shirts,
is making these T-shirts. Okay, so the T-shirts that we're going to have at every book signing we can do, and we're going to make them available on the website, but they're all handcrafted. So Kristi and I make them. Okay, so,
and where we live in our home, we make them.
And
I think that's great. I love repping my stuff because, like, Kevin, you've seen different stuff like I posted. Yeah. Anytime I have, like, a new thing I'm doing, I'm like, okay, like the Books and Brews, I did a T-shirt. When I first did the Savannah quilt, that was one of the first things that I did was I got a T-shirt, and I think that's awesome. You all did your own creation, and, you're doing the T-shirts at the house, with your production and all that, and I think it's cool.
What's awesome is we did the shirt, so this face that we created, we put it on a shirt, and we actually, so I took a plain T-shirt, I put it on the thing, and we screened it, and that white T-shirt went from being just a white T-shirt to being a Rescue Radar T-shirt.
Isn't it so cool to have, like, your thing on a T-shirt?
Well, the even cooler part is taking that T-shirt, rolling it up, putting it in an envelope, and then getting a picture of her 1-year-old grandson wearing the T-shirt with a big old smile on his face.
Was that the one that you sent me, that the little baby shirt or whatever?
Oh man. Well, what's funny is I think I sent you the one of the podcast. I had one T-shirt that was 5XL and then one that was 2T.
Was it 5XL for Lou? Big Lou? I laugh, but Kristi, when we went to take a picture, like I'm 6 foot, I'm like 230. I'm a pretty decent sized guy, and we went to take a picture, and I was laughing. I was like, man, this is like one of the first times I'm not the biggest guy in the group. Lou made me look like a little kid.
He's done that to a lot of people.
Lou is definitely a sizable gentleman.
Oh man, such a nice fella. You know what is funny, Kevin, is like, and I'm gonna have to share this with y'all. Okay, so when I met Kevin, like, you're a real serious guy when you first come across. And like, we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk at the thing, because I was kind of running around and whatever. And, you had you and John Stamp, you guys did the little panel talk and whatever. And, and I thought it was cool. And so I was just thinking, man, like my first impression of you was like, okay, this is a, military ex-cop, this guy's just real staunch, very, real serious and all. And, because that was the only thing we taught. It was kind of like just matter of fact. I mean, that's just how it was. And then when you came into the studio and we were talking, I was like, oh, okay, this guy's a wisecracker. He's a funny guy.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I like this guy, because I was like, I think and I didn't dislike you. Don't get it, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but that's when you came into the studio and I got to know you better, and I was like, oh, this is he's got this dry sense of humor and he's a funny guy. That's when I started, like, I was like, I like this guy, and I think that's the neat thing about it. Like, when you connect with folks, I know we judge people. People say don't judge a book by its cover. We do that all the time. We always judge a book by its cover, and I don't care who you are.
So much time worrying about what the covers look like.
Right. That's the thing, but it's nice when you get to know somebody, because there are so many folks out there, y'all. I mean, like, I'm going to give this, at 4:30, we got to do a little break, but I just kind of want to put this out there. There are so many people out here who, and I call it shovels and jeans, that try to sell, like back in the day with the gold mining rush. It wasn't the miners who were making the money. It was the people selling the shovels and jeans to the miners, the supply houses and stuff like that. And there are so many folks out there today, especially with creatives, that they sell you on the dream of, you can do this or you can do that if you buy my program or my product or whatever. And it's just really nice to see somebody like y'all, where you've got this idea, you didn't know where you were going to go, even though you had published the other book, you'd had some background and some foundational work, publishing a kid's book, a children's book, especially one built for toddlers, whole nother gamut, whole nother ball game. So I think it's really cool how y'all have, put this together, done the whole, shebang with it, and, just really made it happen. And now, you kind of, it's not out there in the world yet, but it is, and it's coming, and people, it's kind of, you're building up the momentum, trying to, get awareness out there of it. And, I think that's one of the things, you want to hustle, you get out there, folks, anybody listening, when somebody says, I want to write, they ask me, like, how do I become a writer? I'm like, well, do you write now? No. Well, that's the first step. You've got to write.
Let's write something.
Yeah.
And we appreciate your help with us building our momentum. That's for sure.
Oh, that's what friends do. That's what we do. We help each other out. We try to do stuff, and that's what we do. We just try to, and I love the fact that, you guys try to build in the community, trying to do stuff with the community. That's just a big thing. And it's nice. It's refreshing to see that, because you see so many people out there that are like, oh, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. I'm like, no, man, And I'll be honest with you, I don't take everybody that asks me to be on the show. I really don't, because I've had some people that they're just like, they'll send me a friend request on Facebook. I'll see that I have mutual friends or whatever. And then, like, I'll say, okay, well, let me just, accept this or whatever. And then the very first 5 minutes or so, they send me a thing, please like my page. Like, no, I don't even know you. I thought maybe, yeah, right. Like, come on, man. I mean, it's just a funny thing, I think, y'all. It's just crazy how people are like that. It's nice to see people that are like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we want to sell books. That's obvious, but we want to tell these stories that kids can, learn things from, and they can do things with, and so that's just really refreshing.
The goal.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to take a little break, y'all. You're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And my special guests today are Kristi Chandler and Kevin Grogan, and they are the author and illustrators of Rescue Radar, which is a new children's series that's going to be coming out. You can go on to rescueradarbooks.com, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is brought to you by listeners and the Ships of the Sea Museum. One of the hidden secrets of the Ships of the Sea Museum is its gardens. Native plants are interspersed with exotic tropical plants throughout the gardens. Visitors can enjoy everything that has earned the Ships of the Sea Museum the Trip Experts 2015 Experts' Choice Award. You can find out more about the Ships of the Sea Museum at the website shipsofthesea.org. Now you have a chance to support both Savannah Independent Artists and WRUU during this shelter-in-place order to stop the spread of COVID-19. Creatives in Need is a group of independent artists hosted by the Roots Up Gallery, which is collaborating with WRUU during this shelter-in-place to offer an online art gallery at www.rootsupgallery.com. For every work of art sold at this online gallery, the artists receive 80% from the sales and 20% goes to WRUU and its programs like Art on the Air. Interested listeners can go to www.rootsupgallery.com to start shopping today.
WRUU 107.5 FM is a new and different listener-supported and all-volunteer community radio station for Savannah. Our diverse broadcast and web programming is supported by generous listeners who value our passion and spunk. We are independent of other media and receive no government or large corporate support. People like you are our largest and most important source of our funding. Go to WRUU.org to find out how you can make a one-time or a monthly contribution. Thank you.
All right, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And my special guests today are Kristi Chandler and Kevin Grogan, who are the author and illustrator of the new children's book, Savannah's K9 Superhero Rescue Radar. So, Kristi and Kevin, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we have been chit-chatting, everybody. If you're just now tuning in, this show will be available on the podcast later on. You can catch it on savannahmuses.com, or you can just search The Adam Messer Show on Apple Podcasts or whatever. It'll be broken down into 2 hours. You'll have the first hour and then the second hour. And so we've been talking a lot about, like, getting into the market with your book, and from kind of like where you started with this idea and all that. What has been something that you found, because you started from zero with it, right? You had this idea and whatever. What's been something that you found as like something, an interesting challenge that you wouldn't have expected to have to deal with, and how did you overcome it?
Well, it's not that I didn't expect this to be an interesting challenge, but of course the biggest challenge for me was the illustrations. I knew that I didn't know how to draw. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to make a children's book, even if you think you have great stories, great messages, great ideas, and more than, I have plenty of them. I have more. I have more waiting in the wings. I have them written down. I have them typed out. I have ideas that are percolating in the back of my head. And I sat down. I thought, okay, as we mentioned before I came back, and I said, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I came home and I thought, okay, I can figure this out. I'm not, I'm not a great artist, but I took some art classes and I can, I can't draw at all. It's terrible. It's awful.
I never took any art classes. So I know the feeling. I started learning how to draw like when I was in second grade. So in a way I kind of feel blessed because I started at such an early age, but I love to draw. And, so I can definitely understand from your perspective, if you're not into drawing and stuff like that, it can be really daunting. And even for me, like, I feel like I can, I'm pretty decent at drawing, but even for me, like we were talking last hour, you and Kevin, I've never done digital. I just started getting into it. But the reason why I wanted to get into it is the same thing. It's like, I've got to do this. I want to do this thing,
I just thought this is insurmountable, because you cannot create a children's book without illustrations. Not possible. And I was so frustrated with it after a couple of days, when I thought I had a couple of stories. I've got this great idea. I've got it all written out. I had it written down, the story, the moral, kind of this little arc of a short story, because that's what you want for little kids. I had a setting, an idea, the little details written down that I wanted in there, and then a brick wall. And I had gone to bed, and the night owl over here comes in like giddy and wakes me up and says, I've got it. And I thought, what happened? Are we getting burglarized? What are you talking about? Just come here. And he brings me out, and he takes his computer and he turns around, and there on the computer screen is Radar.
Wow. Kevin, tell me about that night. What was that like?
Man, I tell you, like I said, I come from a very, very serious background, and I've never enjoyed anything more than I do with this. It taking the ideas and the stories that she has, and then, kind of making a cartoon image of a city that I love. I adopted Savannah years ago, and it's just being able to, make it, come to life on the page. It's just so much fun. And the thing is, I think it all comes back to nobody can accomplish any of this by themselves.
Yeah.
And it's been, there is, if there's no story, I can draw whatever I want. It's just, so the way it comes together. But, we can't get it out there without talking to you, or talking again to all the local bookstores and that kind of stuff. And we're going to make it available on Amazon for sure, because we want our family support and everybody else. And even though it's based in Savannah, the stories translate anywhere.
Oh yeah.
It's just, but then again, how many people have you talked to and said that you're from Savannah, Georgia, or you live in Savannah, Georgia, that's been like, oh, I've been to Savannah, I don't like it.
I don't know
I've
anybody.
never heard anybody do. Everybody, when you talk about Savannah, their answer is, oh my God, I've always wanted to go there. Or, oh my God, I love that place.
I think we're lucky because with the film industry, especially Savannah's been like the go-to destination for a lot of filming. I think that's helped, especially with the public image. And then also the city's done a good job, I feel like, with promoting a good family relatable experience when people are here.
And that's very true. But I can tell you, there's something special about Savannah.
Oh yeah.
I always tell the story. I was stationed in Germany. I came to Savannah when my son was born 17 years ago, and I was in Savannah for 3 hours, and I was walking down Liberty Street just looking around.
Mm-hmm.
And I told myself, I'm never leaving this place. This is it. There's just something about Savannah that makes you want to stay.
Oh, I agree.
And now I'm hoping this little Boston Terrier that runs around saving Savannah will make people want to visit even more.
I agree. I moved here in '96, and actually I moved here the week of the Summer Olympics, the opening of the Summer Olympics in Atlanta in '96. And I lived here about 2 years or so, almost 2 years. I moved away, went to Wichita, Kansas, and I met my wife. And we ended up coming back here in August of 2000. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not in August of 2001. We moved in our house, but we moved back at August of '99. And I love it here. When I was here before I got married, I was a kid, and I don't know. I didn't feel like there was a lot for me. They didn't have a whole lot of nightlife or anything like that. And I was, whatever. But when I came back as, married and had my wife and I had a kid, I was like, this is a great family place to, because here we are, you can go wherever. Talking about book birthdays, Kevin's book birthday and my actual real birthday are the same day.
That was pretty cool.
So I was on my birthday. I was walking around, and I wanted to go downtown. So I went down to Broughton Street, and for the first time ever, and I'm diabetic, y'all, so I don't eat sugar all the time or whatever. But I had a Leopold's ice cream for the first time ever, and it was just something, I never had it before. I know people, rant and rave and love Leopold's or whatever, but that's just one of those neat experiences with Savannah. There's so many different things like that people, they talk about like their first time, coming to Savannah or
Right.
whatever, and so it's I can completely agree. I love Savannah.
No,
That's
and
what.
we're going to try to incorporate, exactly. You mentioned Leopold's ice cream. Mr. Leopold is a true Southern gentleman. He's a great ambassador for the city, and it's one of those things. Like, those are the types of iconic Savannah places that we want to incorporate eventually into this series. And the other thing is, right now everything is geared towards the 5 and under, but we've already kind of worked on some really, really serious issues. Like, we have a character named Maybelline. She's a rescued pit bull, and she has a disfigured ear.
Okay.
We haven't mentioned it or anything like that yet. You're going to get to know Maybelline in the stories, but eventually we're going to talk, about serious type things of, okay, it's okay if you're a little bit different than everybody else. Each character has a little nuance like that, where we're going to get into that. And, the animal rescue world is a huge thing, and we're going to probably talk about that. And, hopefully, depending on the success of, the initial 6 titles, we'll see how far we can go with it. But we're already planting the seeds to talk about many, many more things, and many more serious things.
Issues that we feel are
great.
important for the kids to learn about animals and about people across the board and across the ages.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to to be able to share good, wholesome stories with kids and their families and all. Because there's so much negativity out in the world today, but there's a lot of positivity too.
I think the thing on the negativity is, I think there's a lot of negative in the world if you focus on it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
I always use the analogy of driving a car. When you learn how to drive a car, you're driving down the road. Well, if you look towards the dark side of the road and you see there's a wreck on the side of the road and you're staring at it, your car is going to drift towards the bad thing. All right.
Yeah, rubbernecking. Yeah.
And I hate to say it this way, but if you're driving down the road of life and you keep looking at the positive things, you're going to go in a positive direction. And I think that's worked my entire life, and it's worked for pretty much everybody I know. So, that's kind of my philosophy on it.
Oh yeah. Everybody, you're tuning in today. You're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And so back to publishing with the book and all. So you one of the challenges was the not having the illustration, and then Kevin came up with like, hey, look at this, I've created this thing out of nowhere, which is cool. What was like the next step? What was like, okay, we've got this, we can do this now. What was that next step like?
Well, so we spent time creating then the first book, and the story from beginning to end, the illustrations, getting it right, I wrote the story, he brought all those pictures together, and then, you got to tweak it and discover, well, maybe that doesn't work, that scene doesn't flow like you thought it was going to, or what have you. And so then we thought, hey, we really have something here. And we came up with a second one, and started looking into, like we said, how do we publish this? Hey, can we get this published? And discovered, like I said previously, no, we can't. Not the way that we published Black Sheep. That's
Right.
not going to work like that.
Right. How many pages are the Rescue Radar books?
I'm sorry?
How many pages are they?
So they're 12 pages.
Okay. Okay.
Of story.
Is it like 24 pages with the illustrations, or is it 12?
15, including the cover.
How many?
16, including the covers.
Okay, so that's a good sized little children's book.
Right. And so what we discovered is that's a good question, what you just said. We discovered that's a good question. There's kind of an industry standard for formats for board books. There's several different sizes, different pages, different formats, and you kind of need to know that if you're wanting to publish it, and you sort of need to pick one that suits what you like based on ages and story sizes and just maybe what your preference is, and go with that. So we had to do some research. We had to learn a little bit about it. We went to the bookstores, we went to the library, we looked at them, we held them, we looked at our favorite authors and different things, and discovered just really what we liked. I mean, that's kind of how, what suited our story length, what suited our characters, what we thought was good for the size of children, our age group that we're targeting, for their hands, things like that. We picked a size, which in this, it's 5 by 5, basically. It's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4.
Oh yeah, that's a great size for kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we picked a length, and we go with that format for every story.
And then we had, you had to, of course, look at it from a business standpoint, is what, how do you get the right price point?
Yeah.
Per book and all that kind of stuff. So you can, one, make it affordable to the consumer, and two, make it, limit your cost so your profit margin is as big as it can be.
Because again, we have to have them printed ahead of time. We buy that, we're buying them. It's we go in and we buy.
You're publishing. You're paying for everything up front, and then you have to recoup the cost with sales. Yeah, that's one of the things that you have to kind of min max it, where you're like, okay, what size printing costs and all this. You kind of have to factor it all in, when you're not doing the publishing on demand, especially.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a huge thing, and like I said, if this thing doesn't, well, it will do well, but in the off chance that it doesn't, you'll be getting Rescue Radar stories for the rest of your life for Christmas.
There you go. I'm like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, but we signed page 7 this time.
I'll tell you a story that always inspired me, and I love it. But have you ever heard of Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, the book itself? If not, it's okay. My son Sebastian, it was a compulsory read in 8th grade. Anyway, it was one of the books that he had to read in 8th grade or whatever. And so he comes to me one day and he says, "Dad, you got to read this story." All right. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was mad because I paid $16 for a paperback book, and I hadn't bought a paperback book in a while. I was used to paying $5 or $6 for a paperback book, so I was actually pretty mad when I had to buy this book. It was a compulsory book, and I was like, well, if the school knows that this is a compulsory read, and I say compulsory because, I mean, they make the kids read this. That's why I say compulsory. Why don't they have enough available copies at the library? That's what irked me about it, and having to pay $16 for this book. And so I had kind of like a negative experience off the bat with it, trying to chase the book down the weekend of. It was like, they had one copy in. I had to drive half an hour across town to go get it. So I was like, whatever. It's just kind of a nuisance, an annoyance or whatever. And I was aggravated about it. So he reads the book and he's like, "Dad, you got to read this book." And I was like, whatever, okay. So I started reading it, and it's kind of an allegory. So it's about this kid named Santiago, and he's hunting for this treasure, and he goes, he's a shepherd boy, and he's a shepherd boy that likes to read, which is kind of rare at the time that the story is set in. And he has this idea that he's in love with this merchant's daughter, and he's going to marry her or whatever. And he goes on all this travels and all this stuff or whatever. Well, he ends up at the end of the book. He ends up back where he started from, in the village that he started at, to find this treasure. And the story that I love about it is, I love the story, first of all. I love the book. But the story that I love about it is the backstory for Paulo Coelho, because in the 25th anniversary copy of it, he talks about how the book, the first 6 months sold one copy, and then the next 6 months sold one more copy to the same person that wanted to buy another copy, I guess. And that the publisher, that it was so bad that the publisher released him after the first year, but he believed in this story. And there was like an American journalist that came across the book somehow and asked him if he could translate it. And it was like 10 years later before the book started getting any kind of traction. Like 10 years, right?
Timing is everything.
Right. And The Alchemist has become one of the most published books of all time. People read it. I read it myself probably every couple of years or so. I read it again. Like the first couple of years I read it once every year, just kind of familiarize myself with it. But I love that story of, okay, you don't give up on your babies. You just don't. You stick it out, and especially when you're an indie publisher, author, or whatever. Like I've got an anthology that I'm working together. I've got 10 authors, that I've got short stories that are coming out. Talking about you're going to put it out in March, same thing for me. I was actually going to publish that book this last Tuesday. And with everything happening with the pandemic and the, COVID-19 and all that, I was like, you know what? This is not the best time. I don't want to try to launch a new book imprint and new publishing, with the Valhalla books. I don't want to do that right now because the market is just flooded with so much stuff, I don't want to do that. So I felt like, okay, the responsible thing to do would be to postpone it. So what I've been doing since then, working with the authors and all, first of all, I gave them a deadline extension because, some people were having a rough time. A couple people lost their jobs, that kind of thing, whatever. Is working with them. I have done other things, so I've been working on the promotion of the book before, with the sales and all that stuff. So, I think it's really cool with everybody's journey. I think the theme that, I really want to come back around is I'm very impressed with how, you took this idea and you said, I've got this story, I've got these different, like this character that I love, this, after your puppy, Radar, you're like, okay, I want to do this thing. I think it's just really cool how y'all have put this together and just made it a thing, and then you're so excited about it too, because, I think that's another thing too, is like, if you can't be excited about it, who's going to be excited about it?
The thing is, if you're not excited about your own story and telling it, nobody's going to want to hear it.
Exactly.
There's no appeal to it. But Kristi said it in the beginning. It's the thing is, you have to believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. You have to believe in it, and you have to want to do it. And
I love the fact that, with the Radar, like just looking at Rescue Radar's icon, or whatever, the picture of him, like the character, it's distinguished, it's different, it's something new, and you can tell that it's original. It's not something you kind of like, just to, like you said, Kristi, earlier, about how people can kind of just plug in the names of the kids on a book and it's just kind of a generic book or whatever. This is something new and original, even though the stories are like, morals and stuff that you would, talk about, like no bullying, that kind of thing, like that, we've seen a million bullying stories, you know what I mean? It's something new and original with a new and original character, which makes it the same thing, that we want, like I said earlier about the characters, we want those characters, but we want something new with them. So I think y'all have done a great job with that.
They're tried and true lessons that are important. I can't, learning your colors, that I can't reinvent that. That's important, right. Of course that. But it's the character that we want you to fall in love with. Mm-hmm. We want your kid to want to hear what Radar has to say, because kids don't always listen. I mean, we tell kids, kids often don't listen.
Oh, yeah.
But they have to be interested in who's talking to them.
Oh, yeah.
So we want them to see this guy and say, hey, I want to do what Radar wants me to do. I want to know what Radar wants to tell me.
Yeah.
That's always the point of children's characters.
I agree.
Kids like the character. They want the character to be giving them information that's important. They want to do what the character wants them to do.
Oh yeah.
And hopefully she'll let me make a Rescue Radar plush toy.
There you go. Well, I appreciate y'all being on the show today. Thank you so much, Kristi and Kevin. I really do appreciate y'all being on the show today. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us,
for having
Adam.
us, bud.
All right. And